Hello, welcome back to the channel. My name is Rayo, and today I wanted to talk about the Five of Swords, continuing with our Tarot Discovery series. We're working on the sword suit right now. We are on the Five of Swords. So, Five of Swords, we've got 3 cards that I pulled for us today from my various tarot decks. We've got a new contender for anybody that's been watching the series, because I got some decks from my friend at one point, so we have a new one that I have not used much before. So we'll look at that card and how that kind of differs from the other regular symbology. But first we're going to discuss our descriptions of the Five of Swords, the keywords, specific imagery in the cards, especially the Rider-Waite imagery, and how that kind of plays out into the different cards that we might look at and different cards you might see through different tarot decks. We'll go into other meanings and then the reversals. Also touching on some astrology and some numerology. So, Five of Swords, descriptions, keywords. We've got a handy dandy book here. We're still working through, and I did a ton of research on it. So, also my contacts aren't in right now, so I'm going to have it closer in order to see right now. But we have resentment, competition, conflict, defeat, loss, low self-esteem, separation, humiliation, things being unfair, cruelty, crime, violence, betrayal, battle, frustration, wounds, wounding, self-destruction. We've also got pain, negativity, failure, and bullying. So, not a very bright card by any means. It's definitely one of the scariest looking cards in a tarot deck, but it is definitely not a fun card by any means. In terms of numerological aspects, numerology of the card, the 5, of course, is going to be the most important there. 5 is talking about instability, change. Change is the big one there. 5s are usually change, and then that ties in with sometimes like conflict. And there is, with the astrology of the card as well, 5 of Swords energy, we have Aquarius energy. Of course, the air elements of all the air signs are kind of present in there because it's an air element card, so our Libra, Gemini, Aquarius. And then we also have Uranus, Uranus energy, Aquarius energy, so this kind of like rebellion, bully, like, not bullies, though not the word for this one in this case, like rebellion and like challenge energy. Both Aquarius and Uranus have that energy to them. And then with the 5 energy there, it's during my research it talked about Mars energy and Mercury energy, and specifically the Mars energy being that like ferocity and Mercury being the swiftness. So then you end up with this destruction and this what's the word, do I have it written down? Haste and destruction. And then also with our numerology, right, you're kind of combining like the 3 of Swords energy and the 2 of Swords energy together. So you have that like indecision of the 2 of Swords with the pain and also destruction of the 3 of Swords energy. Very, very heavy and very, very like negative energy in a lot of ways. All the 5 cards in each of the minor arcana definitely have that like change and instability and that like roughness to them, and then we find the more like positive aspects of 5s and the changes when you look at the major arcana. So in this case, 5 is, I have that written down too, hopefully, Hierophant. Yes, Hierophant. So positive like structure and stability. And then also we have Temperance energy with card number 14, so being able to balance things, and that's like the positive aspects of that 5 energy. So in terms of a yes or no reading, our 5 of Swords energy is going to be a no. If it's coming in the upright, it's going to be a no. And then if it's coming in the reverse, like maybe like a tentative yes, depending on the situation here. So let's talk about now our original Rider-Waite imagery here. So our original Rider-Waite card here, we see a figure holding a couple swords, picking up the swords that are on the ground here, and then a couple of figures in the back as they're walking away in that like defeat energy. And depending on the Rider-Waite card, you can see that there's like maybe like a smugness to the face of the person in the forefront here that's holding the swords. There is definitely some like battle that happened, some conflict. And the person that's cleaning up after the battle maybe feels smug about the situation, that they were able to defeat these other 2 characters in the background that are walking away. But there is still, with this card, you kind of see the overcast of the clouds, and you can still see that there's just some ominous energy. It's not really like maybe you won the battle, but you didn't win the war yet. And the imagery can be kind of common across all the other cards, right? So some very common imagery, of course, we have the swords in our Five of Swords across the board here, right? But other common imagery you'll see, we've got like the swords being surrounded by them, kind of the feeling that like trapped or hurt, or like being about to be hurt. There's like sometimes like a lot of carnage. We'll see that with one of the cards I pulled here. And that carnage is what makes this card to me that like very negative aspect to it. I'll just give a little sneak peek because we have it right here, but we'll talk more about the one from the Wild Unknown here. So we see our worms cut up. So carnage being a big aspect of that, the destruction that comes with this energy. And then also we see with the swords being on the ground, potentially in the Rider-Waite imagery, and then in different cards, just like that, like what's left after battle, right? Cleaning up after battle. So much carnage, so much like blood. Like I'm just thinking like Game of Thrones scene, right? Like post-battle, post-war, like post-big battle, and just like bodies strewn everywhere, like all this kind of like really heavy, dark, bad energy. And then last we kind of see is that like air or flight. Birds are very, very common in imagery in these cards. We'll see in the other two that I pulled here. We see ravens and then flies. So flight, so that's that air energy coming through, the swords representing our mind, and then also like the elements in the air around us. So common symbols in this card. Other meanings for this card, we have, let's see, no amount of will, struggle, or fighting will change the situation. We have being able to embrace things as it is. It's a conflict of self, potentially maybe fleeing the situation. We see that with our background characters in the Rider-Waite imagery. Being able to follow the flow of battle, and a little bit more positive aspect, maybe being able to find the way out in the flow of battle, but still having to deal with the battle. Maybe you can't defend yourself, can't defend oneself. With this Five of Swords energy too, it's very double-edged sword, right? We're dealing with the swords as a whole anyway, but being able to use that energy for positive or for negative, that's that double-edged sword coming in. Or we're trying to fight something externally, but we're getting hurt ourselves in the long run as well. So double-edged sword in that way. Five of Swords energy also talks about bad ethics or things being won through deceit. Again, that like smugness on our person's face in the original Rider-Waite imagery. We can have a very unfocused energy, which causes lashing out. That kind of was that Mars energy that we touched on earlier with the numerology. We have warning, selfishness, and desire for power, which then equals defeat. It's talking about winning at all costs. Toxic conditions, the cost of battle, cowardiceness, and then like a competition, and then asking yourself like what you learned, right? It's still a swords card at the end of the day. It's still a card of the mind. So being able to like learn something from the battle. So not good energy. Not good energy by any means. So let's get into our cards that I picked for us today. We saw our Rider-Waite imagery, and I guess I'll start first with the one I kind of already showed you, right? Our one from the Wild Unknown here, Five of Swords here. We have our Five of Swords laying on the ground, and then our worms being cut up here. So not a very good looking card, not a very positive looking card. We have that carnage there, especially, right? The lines in this card and some of the redness orange of it kind of feels like that, like blood carnage as well. And then the lines feel very like, it reminds me of like nails on a chalkboard almost. It feels very like my shoulders like coming up in like heebie-jeebies almost, like things aren't right. The situation isn't right. This is what it feels like. If you're ever seeing like a worm cut in half, right? It's not for good reasons. It's not for a positive reason by any means. It's for maybe in fishing, I don't know. But overall, this card feels very, oh, you guys are loud out there. Sorry, excuse the motorcycle passing by here. But with our Wild Unknown imagery here, it feels painful, it feels hurt, it feels conflicted, it feels like I'm stuck. and not a very good energy overall. But what I think is interesting coming into the next card that I pulled for us, this is from the Arc, I guess is what it's called. Yes, the Arc, the Animal and Tarot and Oracle deck. 100 multi-use cards and guidebook. So this is our new card that I pulled for us, one of my newer decks. And the card that came with 5 of Swords here is the Fly. Let's see. There we go. Winning at all costs and Pride before the fall. What came to mind with looking at the 5 of Swords in this deck with the Fly energy, right? The still like the loss at the end of the day, like again, I go back to thinking of like carnage and flies being up all around the pain, things that are like dead, dying, right, and stuff, and all the flies around surrounding it. Things that are not well, not doing good. And the imagery that kind of came to mind are like the words that I wrote in here being the toxic conditions, right? We find flies in situations where things don't smell good, things aren't going well, it's the toxic environment that we're in. Flies are everywhere, right? And we can't escape them. Like you're gonna find them in probably every single part of the world or some variation of them. Some of them are biting us, like those giant like freaking horse flies, right? Or some of them, there's like a lot of like they carry disease. So fly imagery, it makes sense to me for the 5 of Swords here, right? Where it's like, okay, there is a lot of trying to be involved. There's so much like chaotic energy. You think about all the flies buzzing around, and there's a ton of them especially, or even just one. Sometimes that like one fly that's in your room at nighttime that you could just hear buzzing around, that's just constantly like itching, like an itch in your brain almost, right? It's like just constantly bugging you, not leaving you be. So fly energy I think is very, very interesting here for the 5 of Swords energy. And then our final card I pulled for us, just to give you some different imagery for each of the different ones, I pulled from our Light Seer's tarot here. So we see our figure here very distraught as well, like we've seen in the Rider-Waite, well, not the Rider-Waite imagery, maybe the background characters, not the forefront character in the Rider-Waite imagery, but our character in this one having that like distraught energy and the raven on their shoulder here, right? And that raven feels like it's like pecking at them, or it's like it's bugging them, right? Again, that like fly energy here, or it's like it's up in their business, it's not leaving them alone, showing that the situation, despite maybe being resolved or won in the short term, is not going to be still taken care of in the long term. It's not going to be good in the long term, right? It's that winning at all costs. It's still that pride, that conflict, and still pain and hurt at the end of the day too, right? With this card, we also see in the background that the person that's walked away in this case, or the person that is away from the situation in the background of this card, is surrounded by light, or they're coming towards the light. So this leans into our reversal energy that I'm going to talk about here in a second. And the person that's being able to walk away from the battle, the person that's able to like being like, okay, there's no way to win this, there's no way to do this in a good way, in an ethical way, being able to walk away from the situation and finding a new way to do this, new way to go on the path, a new way to handle it that does have morals and is in a positive way, okay? Now coming into our reversal energy here. So there's certain ones that are, I always describe reversals as the energy being too much of the original energy when it's in the upright, or actual like a solid reversal of it where it's like more positive if the card is negative, or more negative if the card is positive. You'll kind of see what I mean here in a second. So with our reversal energy, we have wounded pride and dishonesty. The cost of winning is too high. And then maybe with that being able to admit defeat, right? That's more of a positive aspect, being able to like step back away from the situation. But on the other hand, we might not be taking responsibility for a situation with the reverse 5 of Swords energy showing up in a reading. We can't bring the situation to a resolution. But if it's coming in a more positive way with a positive card surrounding it, maybe we can bring a resolution to the situation. Maybe we can repair the damage and let go of the past. We're talking then about being able to sacrifice in a healthy way, sacrifice and bring about peace and justice. That's that temperance energy coming out with like a positive 5 energy. And then being able to stay on target and not inflame the situation more. Being able to stay really focused, right? Our 5 of Swords the 5 being that chaos, and swords being the mind, our mind being in chaos, maybe actually being able to stay on focus in this regard, staying on target. Our mind might be conflicted, but we're able to focus in better if this 5 of Swords is coming in reverse. We have other energy of it being hard to get over the past. We are maybe obsessing. Maybe crimes are being exposed. That's a good one too, as well, for reversal energy, where things that are not ethical or things that haven't been good in a situation, maybe you're referring to a situation outside of yourself a little bit, things that haven't been going well. These things are now coming to light. These things that have been dirty and toxic and dark are finally being brought to the light in order to be cleansed and healed finally. And with that, we can see that some things can be salvaged. We can be done with the situation finally and then move past it, move on. We can overcome those challenges, and then with the 5 of Swords energy in reverse, knowing that the worst is over now, right? That big battle, that big conflict is over in this case, and we can finally move on with our life. So 5 of Swords energy, not a fun one. With it coming in the reverse, maybe a little bit better depending on the reading that we're looking at. But 5 of Swords energy, and honestly, most of the Swords energy are not my favorite, not fun. I guess they're good in terms of a reading and showing all different aspects of life and everything that can happen. So they're good in that way, but it's just not a card I want to see when it comes up in my reading, right? If I have to see it come up in a reading, I'd rather it be in the reverse. But it's still not a positive energy at the end of the day I'd like to see. If it's surrounded by other positive cards or other good cards and stuff, then it's not as bad. Not as bad as a whole overall, but not the most fun energy. So, but we got to talk about it. We're exploring all the different cards and all their different meanings and what they mean in a reading, what they mean for us depending on how they're coming out. So take advantage of the imagery and really tone in with your intuition when you're working with any tarot, and especially with this one, it's like being able to look and be like, okay, hey, that person feels defeated, that person with this situation, maybe they're being a little bit cowardly, maybe they're not handling it the best that they could, right? Maybe they're not making the best decisions. So just depends. Keep yourself in check with it as well if it's showing up in your reading. That is all I have for us today, friends. If you are interested in more, there's a ton more videos on this channel. I've already gone through the entire major arcana, and we're working through the swords now, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video. If you're interested in a personal reading with me, go ahead and look in the box down below. I have a Google form that I'm just trying to gauge some interest in, just a quick like 3 minutes, putting in your email, your whatever name you want to be called, and what kind of readings you're interested in. If there's enough interest, I might look at starting some personal readings, opening them up in like September or October. So that is all I have for us today, friends. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day wherever you are in space and time, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.